Hi, and welcome to Experience Points by University XP. On Experience Points, we explore different ways we can learn from games. I'm your host, Dave Eng from Games-Based Learning by University XP. Find out more by going to universityxp.com. On today's episode, we'll learn from Elena Rabkina. Elena is an interactive artist, game designer, and head of the Artistic Research and Social Innovation Foundation, ARSIF. She creates games blending social illustration, public art, and collective storytelling to spark meaningful conversations. Her work tackles mental health, media literacy, language, and urban development, reaching players in over 20 countries.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Great. I'm glad to have you here. And the first thing I want to talk about is the topic that brought me to you, Elena. So I wanted to talk more about your journey into gamification and media literacy. So specifically, I'm asking, can you share your journey into game design and how it led you to focus on gamified learning, particularly in media literacy?
So I have always been interested in games, and I have played games since I was a child. I was born in Belarus, and there we have intellectual games, and it's a type of a team sport. So I was playing it since I was 10. At some point,
Mhm.
I won a World Cup in it and become a coach. So I played it till I actually finished my university. So it
Mm.
was a long career of playing and then coaching. And then I became more interested into the LARPs, which is live action role plays.
Mhm.
And in Belarus, it had developed in the direction of black box
Mhm.
and more theatrical experiences. So I started to create these games on different topics like community or like social environment or how people with eyesight disability and without eyesight disability can play together and can push the idea of inclusion even further.
Mhm.
And I was nominated for Rade Awards for this last project. And then I also was more and more interested in the games shaping the society, and I got educated in how to create board games. But I wasn't creating board games till the moment that I left Belarus
Mhm.
because of political tensions and persecutions in 2020.
Mhm.
Then, living at that moment in Ukraine, I was really willing to do something for my country,
Mhm.
but could not be physically there.
Mhm.
So I created my first board game about burnout,
Mhm.
and I produced it inside Belarus, and I spread it all across Belarus,
Mhm.
including such governmental facilities I would not even expect, but people were reaching out, and the feedback was really, really great. So since then, I produced four games, and one of them was the game Media Mayhem, which is about media literacy. And why media literacy? To be honest, the answer is so obvious because
Mhm.
I think it is the topic
Mhm.
to talk about. But if talking about media literacy was enough, it wouldn't be a problem. So game design allows us to have this first-hand experience, right? And
Mhm.
then this is generally the whole power of game, as instead of like being told what to do, it is about us experiencing. I'm actually a big advocate of game-based education. I gave a TEDx talk about games,
Mhm.
how games are a part of evolutionary process and how all animals play, and this is how they learn. So humans also learn much more effectively through game-based education and games because it's about experiencing instead of just being told some knowledge.
I see. Thanks for sharing. I really want to know more about your past and those games that you played growing up. Can you share more about some of those games you played when you were a child?
Okay, wow. So I really played these intellectual games, and
Mhm.
it's like 60 seconds, and you have a question, you have to find an answer, and it's a team sport
Mhm.
which has six people in a team, and it's a lot of problem solving.
Mhm.
There are also other disciplines like brain ring when it's like about being fast.
Mhm.
So I did like tons of these intellectual games and like sub games to trade for the tournaments. So
Mhm.
intellectual was engaged mostly that. And talking about other types of sport, maybe sport games, I play squash. I really love it because I
Mhm.
like is a bit unpredictable and then also very dynamic. And I also play billiards. I
Mm,
think because I just enjoy the beauty of it.
I see. All right. Thanks for sharing. I appreciate it. I want to go into our second question, and you touched on this a little bit before about the power of games in media literacy and why using games in general is such a powerful medium. So I want to know, why do you think games are such a powerful tool for teaching media literacy? And then specifically, if you can talk about the Media Mayhem game that you created, how does that game approach this challenge?
So I really love games because it is a very easy entrance to the topic.
Hmm.
And it's also an entrance or introduction to the topic that creates an even ground. So all the players, all the participants, they have a collective experience,
Hmm.
right? Games can have different dynamics, they can be more collaborative, more competitive, but in the end, it doesn't matter. There is this magic circle, as we call it in game design,
Hmm.
and you enter this magic circle. So you enter the world with its specific rules, specific dynamics, and then you learn and you interact and you gain some, experience. You have some positive or negative reinforcement from your
Hmm.
actions. And then this world stops existing, but the knowledge or the insights you got from them, they remain with you. And I find it so beautiful, so powerful because yes, it is horizontal approach. Yes, it is first-hand experience. So instead of just get it a ready-made knowledge,
Hmm.
you're actually experiencing. It is amazing for your brain because the thing is that when we are in a class and we get some knowledge, the thing is that we have 72 hours to use this knowledge in practice or
Hmm.
it's gone. Our brain will consider it unnecessary and
Hmm.
it will be gone. So because of that, games give you immediate necessity to use your knowledge. And this is how I build Media Mayhem. Media Mayhem is a game about a very bad media
Hmm.
with very bad journalists. So
Hmm.
it's a media. It's almost about to be closed because they publish a lot of fake news.
Hmm.
But then they're given the last chance. So everyone was fired from this media, and then they're left with four journalists, the best from the worst, and they said, "Okay, guys, this is your last chance. You
Hmm.
have 1 year. At least, please, at least publish more than 50% of news which are true." So in a way, from one side, each of these journalists have agenda to win.
Hmm.
And at the same time, if they all mess up the media, they all lose.
Hmm.
And that's, I think, a very fun and for me, fun way to put it. Because on one side, yes, they can really go for the personal gain
Hmm.
because this or that news give them that or that advantage. But at the same time, I love this idea that if we're really going to be pushing our individual success or individual needs and not think about the collective, which is all going to lose. So in this game, they have 12 months.
Hmm.
And because everyone got fired and all the editors got fired, so they switch the role of the editor once in a while. So every 4 months, every
Hmm.
journalist becomes an editor.
Hmm.
So editor has to choose which news are to be published,
Hmm.
and then other three journalists will suggest, and they will try to trick or maybe not to trick. And it's a lot about creating news and then also understanding how media works. They also touch upon clickability. They touch upon fakeness. There are six main categories, which is politics, ecology, culture, health, technology,
Hmm.
and I think that's it. And then I said I built this game specifically for the school environments, but
Hmm.
of course it can be used anywhere. But I really suggest to give these cards of topics like expertise. Okay, you're expert in topic of ecology
Hmm.
to kids or maybe one day ahead of time. So when they come to play the game, they actually have knowledge of what is the agenda in their country. So they have like connection to the real world, but also they start to understand, oh, maybe not all the news are correct. And then there is this spectrum of fake or not fake news. Because the thing is that as people, we think the news is either true or false. But the thing is, it's not
Mhm.
true. I have myself a background in journalism, and
Mhm.
then I really want to explain to people that it is a spectrum. So there is like news can be proved, checked, then it's like a solid news, but it also can be like kind of trustful, maybe
Mhm.
news. Maybe it's not checked, but it sounds okay. So there can be like deliberate fake information put in the news, but also sometimes it's just not proved. And then I teach them how to lie and how to pitch their news. And then also I teach editors how to like check and to ask questions. So every time they pitch a news, they have to ask the question, editor asks them the question.
Mhm.
And just this practice alone of questioning news is already great. But then we put on this real spectrum idea on top of it, and they have like a whole table, and then they have understanding of little tricks how people would do, how they manipulate news,
Mhm.
how they try to trick others. So in the end of the game, apart from like this playful and competitive thing, apart from them trying to keep the media afloat and succeeding or failing together, they
Mhm.
actually really get trained to question every news and to look for like different ways that media is manipulated.
Wow. Wow, thank you. Yeah, that's a very in-depth explanation of the game overall. I think that's something that really resonated with me is that players in the game experience the role of both a writer and an editor. And I think that's incredibly important for all types of media, but journalism specifically, in that there are people that are going to create content and there are other people that are going to determine if that content gets published, if it gets seen, and if it's generally part of the media organization or the news organization overall. So thank you for sharing. I appreciate it.
Mm. It's
The
my
la-
pleasure.
the last question I wanted to talk about was overall the future of media literacy, and I think that this is something that a lot of people are talking about, journalists, academics, educators in general. But I want to know, with the rise of AI generated content and specifically like deepfakes, how do you see the role of gamified learning evolving in media literacy education?
I mean, I really hope that media literacy education gonna become as essential as maths at school, and then we're gonna start teaching people about it from the very early age. Because I mean, I love internet. I love us being able to connect as collective, but
Mhm.
also I think children are more deceptive, and there are bad things can happen if
Mhm.
they to really understand media really well. And that's why I think it's just so important to create such kind of games, because game is a very easy and accessible way to learn something.
Mhm.
And then especially if you work with young children and teenagers, because let's be honest, teenagers don't like to be told what to do.
Mhm.
So if we're gonna really pressure them, I think it might have the opposite effect. So I think I hope in the future we will have obligatory media literacy education,
Mhm.
or it can go other way around. And then if we're gonna walk the path of more like authoritarian regimes,
Mhm.
maybe they will really push being media illiterate. Like in the past, authoritarian regime push illiteracy, so people will not be able to read at all.
Mhm.
So maybe we're going to have another option of just raising an media illiterate generations that are easy to manipulate. But I think it's also up to us to decide which route we're going to go. I think even maybe if school will not have centralized media literacy education, maybe families have to take on this role and teach their children.
So thank you, Elena. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much as well for, contributing and speaking on this topic.
You got it. So we're going to go into our outro. Again, thank you for joining us today. I appreciate it. Where can people go to find out more about you and your work in general?
I think my website, it's rabkina.org.
Mhm.
And the website of my foundation, it's arsif, arsif.com.
Mhm.
And I think the most active platform I use is Instagram. So you go to Who is Rabkina, and then you found everything about it.
Excellent. I'll make sure that all of those links are included in the show notes. Thank you, Elena. I appreciate it. I hope you found this episode useful. If you'd like to learn more, then a great place to start is with my free course on gamification. You can sign up for it at universityxp.com/gamification. You can also get a full transcript of this episode, including links to references in the description or show notes. Thanks for joining us. Again, I'm your host, Dave Eng from Games-Based Learning by University XP. On Experience Points, we explore different ways we can learn from games. If you like this episode, please consider commenting, sharing, and subscribing. Subscribing is absolutely free and ensures that you'll get the next episode of Experience Points delivered directly to you. I'd also love it if you took some time to rate the show. I live to lift others with learning, so if you found this episode useful, consider sharing it with someone who could also benefit. Also, make sure to visit University XP online at universityxp.com. University XP is also on Twitter and Blue Sky as University XP, and on Facebook and LinkedIn as University XP. Also, feel free to email me anytime. My email address is dave@universityxp.com. Game on.